So my name is Jessie, and I am here today to present the culmination of work I did to complete a bachelor's degree for Goddard. Woo! And our lovely filmer is filming it for the school. Goddard is in Plainfield, Vermont. The college is unique in that it's not a mainstream university or an online school. It's you're required to complete a lot of reading and writing, which I feel like you guys all kind of know about because I've told you what I did for the school. But I just want to acknowledge Goddard because it's a really special place in that I feel like it's not so much about school as it is your personal your personal like passions like surfacing. Like I would have never thought I would have been presenting on mysticism or spirituality, because I feel like when I think of spirituality, I think of it as being really cliche. Like, who's spiritual? Like, definitely not me. But actually, I think that spirituality is just a word for maybe the unseen realms of living that we all experience in different ways. So I don't know, do you guys feel comfortable talking about your own experience with spirituality? Maybe I'll just do it as like a, if you want to talk, instead of, please share your name and your denomination. Does anybody?
Yeah, I can start. Sure. So I wasn't raised in any religious tradition, and I sometimes think that if I told my parents I had found religion, that would be like worse than if I told them I was a crack addict. I think because they're very academic and very kind of skeptical about things. But in my own personal journey, I have mostly through yoga and meditation come to sort of my own version of what I think to be, I guess, my personal truth. I don't have any. I wouldn't claim to define it in any structured way, but yeah, I very much enjoy meditating and finding that to be sort of the closest thing to a spiritual practice that I have.
Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
Anybody else want to talk about it, or should we just keep going? Let's keep going. So I wanted to do a 5-minute meditation because that's also another word like spirituality that basically just means sitting in silence. And a lot of traditions sit in silence, like Quakers sit in silence for an hour. Native Americans sit in silence for meetings. Buddhists sit, and Hindus and Sufis meditate. And so we're just going to sit for 5 minutes as a way to, you know, acknowledge things that are beyond words. And, you know, we have a lot going on internally, and a lot of times we don't look at that. So by sitting, I know 5 minutes isn't very long, but we can just, you know, sit. And I know a lot of you guys already meditate, so it's like, okay, 5 minutes. And I will keep an eye on the clock. Jane let me borrow her bell. So I will ring a bell, and the 5 minutes will begin, and you guys can
walk around the circle.
Oh, you want to walk?
No.
We could do a walking meditation.
Troublemaker.
Karen wants to walk after sitting in the car.
It just made me think about meditation, Buddhism, and after the bell, you know,
Then you walk?
you walk.
Okay, 5 minutes. Also, I don't think I got a chance to tell you all thank you for coming. I really like all of you guys, and appreciate that you're here. So we've done a little bit of meditation. So I am going to jump around to different spiritual traditions and a lot of different spiritual, like Eastern spiritual teachers that interest me. And I'm kind of going to assume that you guys, like if you're really confused, I'm not going to assume anything. If you're really confused, just maybe be like, hey, what is Bhakti Yoga? And then I will say, what's Bhakti Yoga? But I think that you guys know most of these things anyways. And some of the spiritual teachers are part of a religious tradition, like Hinduism or Buddhism, and others came through spirituality by spontaneous experience, like Eckhart Tolle. He just had a spontaneous spiritual awakening, and he, was just a guy, and he was inquiring into the self, asking like, who am I? Who is the I? Who am I? Who am I? And then he had a spontaneous awakening. I'm not going to be talking about Eckhart Tolle, but he's an example of spiritual teachers that, they're not associated with any one religion. One of the things that I was kind of required to talk about that I think was good in the long run was cultural appropriation, which being a white American female and interested in Eastern traditions is an important thing to look at. The history of colonization of America and Americans dominating and pulling from other people's cultures and doing research on other people's cultures, and just being sensitive is a really important part of studying other cultures. I mean, even the traditions that I'm looking at through a lens of growing up in a family that believed in evolution, growing up not going to church, growing up not being part of Indian culture, or just there's so many factors that we all as Westerners have to keep in mind. So with that said, I guess I wanted to define mysticism according to this paper, which is the belief that union with or absorption into the deity or the absolute, or the spiritual apprehension of knowledge inaccessible to the intellect, may be attained through contemplation and self-surrender. A lot of the traditions that I'm interested in have to do with self-inquiry, and I got interested in that from going to Vipassana meditation. Do you guys know those? 10-day? Okay, I saw 2 no's, and yeah, they're really ridiculous actually, because they're video retreats. Like they were all videoed and tape recorded, so when you go to them, you sit in front of this Indian man on the TV that's like, relax and observe your breath. And but his 10-day retreats have become really big all over the world, and they're just a way of learning meditation, which, observing the breath and observing the sensations in your body. And his name is S.N. Goenka. So I'm just going to skip around a little bit. Who has heard of Neem Karoli Baba? Nope? So Neem Karoli Baba was really popular in the 1970s. Guys like Ram Dass and followed him around in India. And then he became popular through them, and like Jai Uttal and Bhagavan Das and some of these Western teachers of spirituality. And he is a really interesting guy in that his teachings are through his presence, and that's so unique to, it's really different. I can't think of anyone in this culture. I wasn't raised in a religion here, so maybe so, but where just by being in their presence, you're learning their you're learning teachings from them about consciousness. And that is an Eastern practice that I think like enlightened beings, by spending time with them or by them touching you, you can like become more aware. This is a belief system. Some people would be like, that's BS, I don't believe in that. So I'm just going to read, I'll tell you a little bit about him. He is from India, and an excerpt from one of his books, devotees of recent years knew him as Neem Karoli Baba, but mostly as Maharaji, a nickname so commonplace in India that one can often hear a tea vendor addressed thus. Just as he said he was nobody, he gave no discourses. The briefest, simplest stories were his teachings. Usually he sat or lay on a wooden bench wrapped in a plaid blanket, while a few of his devotees sat around him. Visitors came and went. They were given food, a few words, a nod, a pat on the head or back, and they were sent away. There was gossip and laughter, for he loved to joke. Orders for running the ashram were given, usually in a piercing yell, around the compound. Sometimes he sat in silence, absorbed in another world to which we could not follow, but bliss and peace poured down on us. Who he was, no more than the experience of him, the nectar of his presence, the totality of his absence. And I got into Neem Karoli Baba because I was hitchhiking around in New Mexico, and he has an ashram down there. And I would have never thought to just like be absorbed in the presence of someone whose body has passed from this earth. But just by spending time at his ashram, it was like I like felt different than, say, how we feel right now in this library, or like, I mean, and I don't know what is on my finger. I mean, like, everything is energy. We all know that. Like, you interact with someone, you feel one way or you feel the other way. But like, it was a trip to me to be in his ashram and feel him all over the place. Like, feel this sense of overwhelming like peace, and like feel so good. And we that was probably like 6 or 7 years ago, and then I returned another time, and it felt a little bit different. Maybe not like I didn't feel his presence as much, but yeah. So actually, I feel like maybe I should keep moving. I was gonna read a couple of his teachings, or things that he said. This is just like a book of stories about him. He said, or 2 old men were en route to the Ganga at Mela. So you guys, the Ganga is the Ganges, which you guys have probably heard is like one of the holiest rivers in India, and the Kumbh Mela is a gathering of spiritual seekers and saints, and like millions of people come, like millions of people come. So it said 2 old men were en route to the Ganga at Mela. It is considered a very holy thing to bathe in the Ganga at this time. Maharaji commented, "No, take your bath here. Everywhere is the Ganga." And then he said, once a devotee was on his way to the Ganga to take his ritual bath when he encountered Maharaji. Maharaji sent him back without his bath, saying, serving people is better than a ritual bath in the Ganga. Often Maharaji quoted, "All action is in prayer, all trees are desire fulfilling, all water is the Ganga, all land is Varanasi." And his main teachings were just to serve others and devotion to God. And devotion to God was like by concentrating the mind and reciting mantras like Ram. He would like sit around and did Ram, 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 or like his devotees would sit around saying Ram, 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 which just means God in Hindi, I think. So I can pass this book around if you guys want to take a look. Sure. Let's see. So he's one. I wouldn't like talking about all of these different spiritual teachers. It's not like, oh, Neem Karoli Baba is my guru. Like, I just felt like presenting these different gurus in hopes that maybe you guys would be like, that's interesting. And if you weren't, then I'd be like, great, that's fine too. I'm just gonna get up and see. Oh, the first slide, it says opportunities for development of the mind. And I just wrote that thinking that if anybody that I didn't know came to this presentation, that then they would know where they could go meditate in Missoula, but you guys already know. So there's Neem Karoli Baba again, Hindu guru.
And he's passed?
He's passed, yeah. He died. I didn't get his birthday, but he died in 1973. And he was, as a young child, he was a sadhu, which means he walked around with, you know, just, it's basically like the equivalent of a monk. He just renounced the world. And taught to love everyone, serve everyone, remember God, and tell the truth. So the next slide is just images I pulled up that relate to death and dying. And where is that book? Oh, I wanted to talk about the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying because I just was really inspired by this book when I was a teenager. How many of you guys know about this book?
Which one is it? The Tibetan, yeah.
Everybody?
I know about it.
I've not read it.
never read it.
Okay. So I'll just like talk about it a little bit because it sounds like all of you guys are like, yep. Well, I just think it's really interesting that the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying really goes into talking about the importance of preparing for death, which like, I don't know about you guys, but I like rarely discuss death. And in this culture that we're like, oh, fulfillment, oh, sex, oh, food, oh, like so many things. I mean, yeah, we do live in a material world. It's a good thing to fulfill the things of life, but it's also super fascinating to me to look at what the history of monks and how they've gone so deep into these levels of consciousness that they've explored beyond life, like the stages of death, and then they've explored rebirth. And of course, that's also a belief system. Some people believe in rebirth, some people don't, but it's hard for me not to believe in rebirth when they discuss in such detail the bardos, which are the stages of dying, and the process your mind goes through, and how important it is to be mindful through that so that you can, so that I guess the ultimate aim would be to like transcend and not be reborn, but maybe just to be more, bring more awareness would be, I mean, like an aim for me. And I think I wanted to read one thing out of here. At his monastery in Nepal, my master's oldest living disciple, the great Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, had come to the end of a teaching. He was one of the foremost teachers of our time, the teacher of the Dalai Lama himself, and of many other masters who looked to him as an inexhaustible treasure house of wisdom and compassion. We all looked up to this gentle, glowing mountain of a man, a scholar, poet, and mystic who had spent 22 years of his life in retreat. He paused and gazed into the distance. I am now 78 years old, and so many people, and have seen so many things during my life. So many young people have died. So many people of my age have died. So many old people have died. So many people that were high up have become low. So many people that were low have risen to high up. So many countries have changed. There has been so much turmoil and tragedy, so many wars and plagues, so much terrible destruction all over the world. And yet all of these changes are no more real than a dream. When you look deeply, you realize there is nothing that is permanent and constant, nothing, not even the tiniest hair on your body. And that is not a theory, but something you can actually come to know and realize and see, even with your very own eyes. This existence of ours is as transient as autumn clouds. To watch the birth and death of beings is like looking at the movements of a dance. A lifetime is like a flash of lightning in the sky, rushing by like a torrent down a steep mountain. And goes on to talk about realization of the impermanence. And I liked the last paragraph that said, sometimes when I teach these things, a person will come up to me afterward and say, all this seems obvious, I've always known it. Tell me something new, like talking about impermanence. And it says, I say to him or her, have you actually understood and realized the truth of impermanence? Have you so integrated it with your every thought, breath, and movement that your life has been transformed? Ask yourself these two questions. Do I remember at every moment that I'm dying and everyone and everything else is, and so treat all beings at all times with compassion? Has my understanding of death and impermanence become so keen and so urgent that I'm devoting every second to the pursuit of enlightenment? If you can answer yes to both of these, then you have really understood impermanence. And, you know, I know that some of us would be like, I don't want to be enlightened, or like, I don't want to be on the path towards enlightenment. That doesn't sound very pleasant. I mean, I don't feel like that's very pleasant, but I don't know why I mentioned that. I guess because we all have choices in this world. So that's the Tibetan book of
Robert, please call 3871. Robert, 3871. Please.
Living and Dying. And I'll pass that around since you guys have looked at that a lot already, it seems like. I wanted to talk about Ramana Maharshi. Do you guys know about Ramana Maharshi? He's another Indian guru that had a spontaneous awakening when he was 16, and he was born in Tamil Nadu, India, and then he just awoke to the truth of reality, which, I mean, it's kind of impossible for me to talk about because I am not awakened. I'm like, I am me and you are you, instead of like seeing all things as one. And let's see if I can go more into this by going to this computer. So Ramana Maharshi, that's some pictures of him. He was born in December of 1879 and he died in April of 1950. Once he became realized, he moved to Arunachala Mountain, which is a sacred mountain in India. And as seen with many Indian saints, he spent several years in solitude, which it's crazy to look at how many Indian saints have spent, they'll spend 7 years in solitude, or they'll spend 20 years in solitude, and then people come in contact with them and they start wanting their teachings. And he taught mostly by just being present and you being in his presence, like Neem Karoli Baba. And he also taught self-inquiry into just looking at what is the I, and by looking at that, not so much with your mind, but just continuing to use that as self-inquiry, it brings you to self-realization, apparently. Is this the next person I wanted to talk about? I kind of want to talk about Sivananda or Shivananda, I hear people call him, before I talk about Ruth Denison. Shivananda, I came across in India because I got really sick, and a woman at the Shivananda Center took care of me, and otherwise I would have never known about Shivananda, who is another Indian guru. I'm not sure if he's enlightened, but he was a sannyasi. He became the equivalent of a monk, and he gave his life in service of others and opened up a lot of centers in India and in the U.S. I think the center in the U.S. is called the Divine Life Society. And he was into Vedanta, which is one of the 6 philosophies of Hindu thought, which follows the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads and a lot of those texts from the Mahabharata. Is that right? I don't know. Yeah. And he taught to love all, and serve the Lord in all. To speak the truth, be pure, be humble, to concentrate, meditate, attain self-realization, and that customs, conventions, and ceremonies are non-essential. And similar to Neem Karoli Baba, being at his ashram, I was there for 3 weeks in bed, not moving, and that center was just the amount of peace and concentration in my mind was incredible. Like I would get up at 4 a.m. and take my like one walk of the day up to the place where it was just men, all these monks chanting. And I mean, maybe it was that it was 4 a.m. or maybe it was that I was in India and I'm a foreigner and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. But like, I think beyond that, just the effect that meditation has on a space and in changing the energy of a space, and the effect of prayer and the effect of maybe perhaps living simply. I don't know if I could go so far as to say that, but all of the practices that they do just really imbibe a place with just an amazing feeling. Do you want some chai? Okay.
I'm busy listening.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, please.
Do you guys have any questions so far? Or any thoughts? Like, this, no, nothing? Okay. I'm going to go back to Ruth Denison, because Ruth Denison's a Westerner, and she, different. Ajahn Mun he is also passed away. He died in 1950. He was part of the Thai forest tradition, which is a super interesting tradition in that the Buddhist monks in Thailand wander around the forest and exist off of alms from the villagers. So they just get their food from being given it, and they meditate in the forest a lot of times in their kutis, which are these little huts that they build for the monks, but a lot of times they're just wandering. And Ajahn Mun was really amazing to me, because after spending time at a couple of different monasteries in California that are the Thai forest tradition, reading his biography was just like, it just blew me away at the states of consciousness that that he attained. I would say you could attain, but I don't know. I mean, just insane. The things that he was talking about in that book, and the states that he attained in meditating and accessing other realms, and in the realizations that he had they're just really incredible to me. It's like a whole different world that we're like existing in one little tiny pool of existence, and then there's like all these other realms out there that are like right here with us. It's just that we don't access them unless we're going into these states of deep awareness and practice of meditation. And his book is right here. You can get his book for free at any like Thai forest monastery. If you go stay there, they print these out for free. And I was gonna read something from one of his books. As a teacher, Akarya Mun was unrivaled in his ability to help develop the spiritual potential of members of the lay community, which is a big deal, because a lot of Buddhist monks, it's just acknowledging like monkhood, whereas I really respect the traditions that also acknowledge the lay community, which is us. We're not monastics, but we're
Seekers.
We're seekers, yeah. But we're still like working jobs, or we're still in relationships or things like that. Develop blah blah. As a teacher, I'm just going to read this sentence over, I'm sorry. As a teacher, Akarya Mun was unrivaled in his ability to help develop the spiritual potential of members of the lay community, enabling them to grasp the significance of Dhamma and the basic moral principles of cause and effect, which are universal principles governing the world. Spiritual development means developing the one factor that is absolutely central to the well-being of the world. The world comes to ruin only if people's spiritual values come to ruin first. When spiritual values deteriorate, then everything people do just becomes another means of destroying the world and subverting Dhamma, which Dhamma is the same word as Dharma, but Dhamma is the word in Pali that Dharma is in Hindi. Is that right, or Sanskrit?
I think Sanskrit.
Okay, yeah, which is the teachings of the Buddha. And the teachings of the Buddha are to meditate and, do not kill, do not steal, don't tell lies, no sexual misconduct, I think. Yeah.
No alcohol.
No, yeah, and abstain from intoxicants. So it says, when people's hearts are well trained in spiritual values, their speech and actions become an effective means of promoting the world's prosperity. And I just feel like reading that sentence again because I really like it. When people's hearts are well trained in spiritual values, their speech and actions become an effective means of promoting the world's prosperity. Karyamun invariably made a deep impression on the people who met him. Those who sincerely respected him were willing to offer their lives to him unconditionally. Whether it be matters of good or matters of evil, once such concerns are embraced and taken to the heart, they then exert a powerful influence on that person, one no other force in the world can match. So yeah, he and Ajahn Chah are pretty much the founders of the Thai forest tradition, which is mostly a male group. What would you call that? Like a male, what? Yeah, a male, like a lineage of male monks. There's not very many female monks, if any, in this tradition. I know that there's female monks in Burma and Thailand, but I'm not sure if they're associated with this particular tradition. And I will pass his book around. I know you look, and he, his picture is kind of scary, just so you guys know. So I kind of wanted to show you guys this Alan Watts YouTube video because I like it. It's a little bit cheesy in that there's like music and pretty visuals, and then it's like, you are all one. Do you guys have interest in watching that? Yeah. Okay. No?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I do have a question.
Sure.
So going back to what you said, that you had been very ill for 3 weeks, and then you met someone, and then we didn't pick up on it, or I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
And I wanted to know more about that. If you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. What did you want to?
Or just talk, whatever it is, you might want to say any more about it, or if you don't, okay.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I go all over the place because I tend to have that kind of mind. So the way that I came in contact with that Shivananda ashram was through meeting this Canadian nun, who's lived there since she was in her teens, and she took care of me there. And she lives there with her father, who's a monk, and she's a nun. She's like the only nun that lives there, and that place is in Rishikesh, India, and it's called the Shivananda ashram.
But for 3 weeks, they took care of you, and you go, isn't that wonderful?
It's so wonderful. Yeah, definitely. And they invite Westerners to come over every Christmas. I don't think that they follow Christmas, but that is the time when they invite people to come. We could watch the video a little bit. Okay. The only thing is, I guess I have to.
I enjoyed. I didn't know this was happening.
Thanks for coming. If you want a cookie, there's a lot of them.
I really want one, but I don't think I need one. Thank you.
Okay. So I think other than watching the Alan Watts video, I was gonna just talk to you guys about Ruth Denison. And then there's like a million other gurus and teachers that I studied through doing this paper, but I don't know why I just chose these ones, probably because I wasn't bored with them yet, because I was pretty bored with a lot of the other ones after. Like Rumi, I don't really want to touch Rumi for a long time, because I wrote a lot about Rumi. And these are nice pictures. I'm going to show you guys some nice pictures. Ruth Denison was taught by the same teacher that Esengwenka was taught, the Burmese Vipassana teacher Sayaji Ubakin. And Ruth Dennison is a woman from Germany who just passed away this year. And she went through like Nazi Germany, survived it, somehow like hid and came to the US, and then got involved with all of the like 1970s characters like Aldous Huxley and stuff, and got involved in Vipassana meditation. I forget how she met Sayaji Ubakin, but her and Gwenka, and I think there was an Englishman that was taught by Sayaji Ubakin, but there was like a group of them that were taught Vipassana, and then they went out and spread that tradition, which is just, you know, a form of meditation. And she lived in LA for years, and then her and her husband opened up a meditation center in Joshua Tree, and I was living in Joshua Tree, and then she's like living out in the middle of nowhere, so I just went out there to visit her in her very, very old age. And some monks were living out there supporting her, and then she passed away this year. And the thing that I really liked about her is that she was really in support of women meditators and of different forms of meditation. So she taught like dance, which I thought that was unique to teach like dance or like movement meditation. And similarly to all these other teachers, like just being in her presence brought a lot of concentration to my mind. Like all I had to do was sit with her and in the meditation hall, and I would just be like, instead of like blah blah all my mind stuff, it was just like quiet, and then she would lead your mind into the meditation. So she'd be like, okay, so here you are, and then, you know, like, let's, you know, slow the breath, or like it was almost like going on a journey in my mind with her. And I've noticed that with other teachers too, like spending time at Meta Forest Monastery, the teacher there, he also will like, he can read your mind, so you'll be sitting there and he'll be like, stop thinking about blah, and then be like, okay, now slow your breath down. And it's like a way to get into depth meditation by being in the presence of these teachers. Now we're kind of running out of time. Maybe we could watch the Alan Watts video. Maybe we won't do clay because there's no point.
Everyone could take a little bit home.
Yeah, just take a little bit of clay home.
And bring it over to you.
I kind of want to hear what you guys think. Is like, are you like, what the hell? I didn't know she was into this kind of stuff. Or like, what, like.
I guess I didn't know the depths of it. I mean, I knew that you're not very old to have had this many experiences. I always think that about you. You've done so many, you've been to, you know, to have studied this much independently of any kind of academic practice. I just think it's really neat to, you know, tip my hat to you, really.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Not about that though. Any other thoughts? Like personal thoughts? Like, are you guys like, this is like, blah. I mean, that's usually, even if you were just like, oh, this is not for me, like.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
What's with the other books there? What were you going to bring them?
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's really, you know, I mean, I've studied a lot of this for a long time, but, you know, there's always more,
Yeah.
you know, and like, I didn't know about Ruth Dennison, and, you know, and there's just, it's just great to get, you know, sort of another key into it, I guess.
Yeah.
When did you start really thinking, exploring these sorts of practices? Was it just you happened upon them?
In high school.
And what led you to that?
The Dalai Lama.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Through his books.
Did somebody give you one?
I think I bought one. Yeah.
Were you sort of the only person in your peer group who was doing this sort of thing? Was it totally independent?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I was like sitting and meditating every day, so.
Did you talk with your friends about it?
No.
Did you have anybody that you talked to about it?
No. I feel like it's a really weird thing to talk about. I mean.
Well, it's not now that you're grown up, but maybe when you were 15 it would have been.
Yeah.
Did you have a sense of that? Sorry to give you
I want to hear what Emily and Paul have to say.
I know you kept looking this way. No, I think it's a really, there's so much. It's religion. It's like endless, it seems like. So
Yeah.
my mind is going and thinking about a lot of different things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, and Paul. I have no idea, you know?
Yeah.
The more you learn, the less you know kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
It's interesting to hear your experiences with going to these ashrams. Most of
Yeah.
us just read these books and never, you know, go there and experience the actual place.
Right. I mean, but the interesting thing is a lot of these teachers are like, you don't have to go anywhere to be experiencing.
Although you did say there was a palpable difference being in the presence.
That's true, which has come up a lot in this presentation. I didn't expect it to, but I suppose that's like one aspect. But that's, yeah, maybe that would encourage other people to go be in the presence of other teachers if it interested you. You know, I don't know. Maybe we should just end with that. Because Alan Watts' video is very like, do you guys?
I feel like you just found it. Yeah, that just did it.
Yeah. Okay. Then let's be done. That is it. Thank you for coming.
Can we get another Alan Watts presentation?
Ho do do ho do 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 ho.
Well, I did want to know, what other books did you bring that you didn't
Oh,
talk
yeah.
to us about?
I brought.
I know about Rumi, but.
Yeah, I brought Rumi. I was pretty into. You were too into the Krishnas.
Oh, the
So this is
Krishnas.
Swami Prabhupada. Swami Prabhupada. The Krishnas. This one is. I know I read it, but I forget who this guy is. I think it's a European that talks about God and prayer and pilgrimage, but it's not like Bible-y. It's like, not that I even know anything about the Bible. I really don't. But it's more mystical. So that's one. And then this is the Ruth Denison biography.
Oh, that's the
Did you want to check this one out?
Which one is the Ruth Denison biography that dancing?
Oh, this one, yeah. Which is just, it's not a super spiritual book as much as it is like about her life, which is fascinating.